Hey, I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackGear.com. Today we're going to break down the FlashTune Quick Shift Kit install on our 2022 STG Yamaha R7 project bike. Okay, well, what do we need to install this? This is actually, quick shifting is a factory option on this bike. There's a OEM part that you can buy and install, or you can do what we're doing here and you can install the quick shift sensor from FTECU. We like this one because it's a push or a pull. You can do standard shift or GP shift. They make good quality stuff. We've used their things for many years on our bikes. We'll ultimately be flashing this one too. So what do you need to do to install? You can see I pulled the race bodywork off. If you can't install the bodywork, you probably shouldn't be doing this. If you have OEM bodywork and need a little help, you can take a look at, you only need to remove just a little bit, right? Probably this panel over in this area so you can gain access to the plug over here. You wouldn't need to take all the bodywork off for the purpose of this video. I just took all the race bodywork off. We're also going to be installing a bike side flash kit on this next up. So, tools that were used to install, we got a 11 millimeter wrench, two 10s, got a pair of side cutters, I got a Allen, 5 millimeter Allen wrench, a couple of basic screwdrivers. You really don't need a ton of tools to get this done. This is a pretty simple process. One heads up that I do want to give you, and we ran into this and kind of learned this the hard way. Per the instructions from FlashTune, there is this manual process that you need to do to enable the OEM ECU for the quick shifting function. Remember, this is a factory option. I had already removed a part that you needed installed to complete these instructions as they're outlined, and that was the key switch. We put a Woodcraft key switch eliminator in, so I had to very quickly pull the tank up a little bit, put the OEM key switch back in, right, get all that wiring restored to factory. Just for grins, because it says here in standard shift, I just threw it back at standard shift. It's one bolt, and then I went through the process. We'll show you this at the end of the video. It's really pretty simple, and in the end, you follow the steps. The little QS icon is going to be on the dash, and you are good to go. Who is this right for? You know what, a quick shifter can be a ton of fun on the street. It's, in my opinion, pretty much required at the racetrack, right? But there's a lot of street riders, especially with the ease of installation on this one. You don't need to flash the ECU or take the bike to a dyno or anything like that. You just put this part on, follow the little process, and bada boom, you are now clutchless upshifting. Just hold the thing at full throttle, right? And if you're standard shift, lift up on the shifter. If you're GP shift, push down on the shifter, and bam, you are in to the next gear. Stay tuned for the actual install. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into the install now. This is a cool kit like we talked about already. The bike comes from the factory with the ability to have a quick shifter installed. This solution from FlashTune makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. It comes with all the pieces that you need, right? We've got our push or pull sensor, so we're going to be able to do this in reverse shift, GP shift, which is how we have this bike set up right now, or standard shift. Here is the harness that's going to plug into the OEM connector right up here. You can print off the instructions on the FlashTune site, like so. You log into your account. It'll walk you through all the steps to get your document printed. You are going to need this for this install. So our first step is going to be with the shift rod here. Let's go ahead and, I already broke a lot of that loose. Need to remove this shift rod and build. Might need to actually just go ahead and take the shifter off the bike to facilitate that. Depending on what rear sets you're running, right, this part may look just a little bit different. We have a set of Graves on here right now. We did on one of our previous installs. Okay, so here is the shift rod that we're using for that. Now, ultimately, what we want to do is get the same length out of the universal rod kit that's come with this quick shift sensor and the quick shift sensor itself. Remember, you've got standard and reversed threads. Okay, so we need to kind of identify the order in which this needs to go together. Reverse thread for this heim joint down here. Okay, so this is our reverse thread rod. It's already got the 2 nuts installed on it, so that's going to need to attach to the shifter itself. This portion of the shift rod is reverse thread, and this is the section that does not have the wrench flat on it. Okay, so just kind of laying this thing out like so. And then this is standard thread. One thing that's very important is you want to make sure that you maintain at least about 10 millimeters, right? You want to have about 10 millimeters of thread inside any of the heim joints or the threaded shift rod itself. So you can see with this piece, we're going to have to run that in basically all the way to the jam nut. And you can go ahead and start now by tightening the jam nut against the shift rod. Standard thread. This end of the quick shifter, right, which is a push or pull, will accept either standard or reverse threads. Just kind of thread that in until it bottoms out, and then what I'm going to do, just to show you the penetration that we end up with, you can see right there it's basically the 10 millimeters, so you need to have that threaded in all the way. So thread that in by hand. Go ahead and seat the jam nut. There is a wrench flat built into the quick shifter itself. Grab the other 10. Snug that one up. So the quick shifter is now permanently affixed to the shift rod. You know, what you can do here too to kind of help yourself to make sure that you start off at, you know, what would be basically the minimum. Just kind of set the nut. That's about 10. Like so. Get this one down to about 10. And now we need to go ahead and get the shift rod threaded into the heim joint that's both up here at the shift knuckle, right, and down here at the shift pedal. Many different ways to do this. What I'm showing you right now is just simply one of them. By getting them started both at the same time, what it does do is it keeps that really super even. Had that top nut at about roughly 10 millimeters of penetration. Let's go ahead and grab our shifter here and see what our adjustment looks like. This is really a pretty basic install, and then there's a little procedure that's outlined in the install instructions. That's not a bad starting point now, is it? So now there would be a couple of different ways to adjust this, right? You could rotate the whole rod a little bit, or you could just simply rotate over here. One thing that is super important, and that's going to wind up being really, really close right there. One thing that is very important is you want to make sure that you are as close to a 90-degree relationship between the shift rod and the shift knuckle, which you can see there, that's spot on. And you want to aim for the same thing down here at the shift pedal itself, about a 90-degree relationship between that arm and the shift rod itself. The position we're in now, we can go ahead and begin to snug stuff up. Let's go ahead and tighten up this shift rod. You know, there's certainly going to be fine tuning that's going to be done here, right down the road. But for our purpose right now, let's go ahead and get this tightened up, because there is one really important little detail that I do want to share with you. And it's going to be the relationship of the two heim joints on either end of the shift rod itself. Okay, you want to make sure that they're both on the same plane, that you don't have them rocked like this. That can end up causing some binding, which nobody wants. So I'm going to grab one more wrench. I think I need an 11 there. So we'll start by snugging the one up top here. Like so. And then we can come down to the lower one. And what I want to do is I want to basically rock them both in the same direction, which I've done. I'm able to get that wrench in there. It's a little bit of an angle. Pull that apart real quick. That wasn't yet tight. It's good and snug. Slide this bad boy back on. We'll go ahead and tighten this fastener now. That fastener will ultimately end up with some thread locker on it. So now, you basically test that by rocking that back and forth like that to make sure that they're on the similar plane, okay? And that you don't have them cocked and they're kind of fighting each other, because ultimately that can cause some binding, which you don't want. You want your shifting to be super smooth and require as little effort as possible. Another little touch I'm going to add here is going to be for our harness. We want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to kind of protect this thing. So I drilled a little hole. If you want to kind of maybe get a little bit closer to this, Lucas. Drilled a little hole in the shift knuckle. I think it's like a 7/64. I got a little cable tie, and I'm going to leave just a little bit of a loop there. And secure that like so. And then as we get this all hooked up, we'll get back in there and double check and make sure that no binding of any sort. Our connector is right up here. The instructions clearly show this is up here by the cylinder. You know, we have the bodywork was already off the bike. A lot easier now that it's converted to race bodywork. All right, so we're going to cut away the electrical tape that's holding that in place, and now we need our adapter. Keep everything kind of behind in case we're in the event of a crash. So this is a push or a pull sensor. We need to determine which connector is for which. So to upshift, we're clearly going to be pulling on this, and it's going to be the connector with the black. This is black and green, but that looks like blue and green to me, right? And this is an easy swap if we have to change it. It's going to be right here, step 5 of the instructions. The shift sensor has 2 connectors on it, one connector with red and green wires for push function, and one connector with black and green, looks like blue to me, for the pull function. We're going to be using that. And we're clearly going to have a little excess harness that we're going to need to deal with and secure, right? So, and this is something that, you're just going to fine tune this as you go through your project. Right? We don't have the body work on the bike right now. I think up here is probably going to be a decent point to secure it. We can secure it a little bit over in here as well. Grab a couple more cable ties. This is pretty dry here. I think you all will be able to figure this out. When we come back, we're going to show you the procedures that you have to go through to enable the quick shifter on the motorcycle. Okay, we may have a problem here. So per the instructions, to enable the quick shifter, turn your key off. We don't have a key anymore. We have a Woodcraft key switch illumination harness installed on this bike. And we're going to find out right now if that complicates this. So, to enable quick shifter, turn your key off. It's effectively off now because the switch is off. And run switch to switch on. Starting with the bike in neutral, pull and hold the shift lever up. That's for standard shift. So we need to push down to put the bike into second gear, right? Continue holding the shift lever and turn the key on. Now continue to hold the shift lever for another 15 seconds, then release and push, in our case, pull up into first gear. This should activate the QS in the lower left portion of your dash. QS is now enabled and you can go ride. So let's see how this goes here. So starting with the bike in neutral, pull and hold the shift lever. So we're going to push down on our shift lever right now. Putting the bike into second gear, continue holding and turn the key on. Key is on. Now continue to hold the shift lever for another 15 seconds. That feels like about 15. Let's get under that shift lever and let's pull it up into gear. Oh boy. I am not seeing any indication on the dash right now that the quick shifter has been enabled. So I think I may need to disassemble some stuff and put it back to stock for a minute to make this happen. Okay, well, look at this. In order to enable the quick shifter, remember I had installed previously on this bike, I'd installed a Woodcraft key switch eliminator. In order to initiate the the quick shifter on this bike, you have to follow this manual process, right? This is a factory option. I did double check to make sure that when I flashed the ECU, which is one of the next projects we're going to do, that I wouldn't be able to initiate it then. I'm not able to, so what I had to do was pull the key switch eliminator, reinstall the key switch, and basically put, in those terms, the bike back to stock. Now, we need to start off with the bike in neutral. She's in neutral. We need to have the stop-start switch in the on position. We need to lift up on the shifter. I put it back to standard shift just so we're 100% to the instructions. We have to lift up on the shifter and hold it. Turn the key on. We need to wait about 10 seconds or so. And now we're going to push down. And if you come over here, you can see now there is an icon in the lower left-hand corner of the dash that says QS. Our quick shifter is now ready to rock. Okay, there you have it. We got it all wrapped up. A little bit of drama, so when you're doing your install, right? Hopefully you still have your key switch in place. It's going to make your install a whole hell of a lot easier. If you don't, you're probably going to have to slide that back in there so you can follow the steps as outlined by Yamaha to enable that function in the ECU, because you can't even turn it on with an FT ECU flash. Is what it is. Shit happens. Welcome to working on motorcycles. Remember, this will work for either standard or reverse shift. We're showing you reverse and or GP shift, right? If you're going to flip it around, you're going to need to flip the connector over so the quick shift sensor works appropriately, but it's a push or a pull, so you can go either way, and it won't require purchasing any different parts. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments section of this video. I'm always here to help make sure you get the same result out of your project we do ours.